Milo, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Okay, it's time for another podcast, Bruce.
Really?
It is. It's time.
Will this be the first one since the last one?
This is, as a matter of fact, since the last time we did a podcast, this is the first time we've done it. So,
wow.
It's kind of good to be back in the saddle, as they say.
Yeah, almost like riding a bike. You don't forget how it goes, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you and I are together. We're kind of like Lewis and Martyn.
I was thinking Laurel and Hardy, maybe, but
or Martyn and Rowan.
Martyn and Rowan, yeah.
Shriver. Who is that guy? Burns and Shriver.
All right, yeah.
Yeah. Shriver was actually the guy that played the deputy in Andy Griffith after Barney Fife left.
Oh, is that right? That's true, yes.
Yeah, but he was no Barney Fife.
No. There could only be one Barney Fife.
Exactly. All right. So we have Chris Atkins here. Chris Atkins from Argyle, Texas, home of the Fighting Sox.
Exactly.
What's going on?
I'm working on that T-shirt, Chris. I have a man on that job. The Fighting Sox emblem.
Seeing the results.
Me too, actually. Except the guy's kind of annoying me. He seems like a very, very nice gentleman, but he's like you. He gives me way too much information. It's kind of like, just draw me a fighting sock. That's all I want. I don't care how you do it, what the vector, what the DP. I just want a fighting sock. You make me a fighting sock and I'll be happy.
Yeah, make me a fighting sock for a T-shirt.
Yeah, make me a fighting.
Simple request.
Yeah, exactly. And also we have bringing up the rear, and one of the reasons we're having this podcast is none other than the often agitated locomotive engineer from Green Bay, Wisconsin, home of the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field, is none other than the Spoon Ostertag.
Hi.
As he comes into the ring and disrobes. Put that back on. He's in the gold trunks tonight. In the gold trunks.
Ugh. When you said that even made me throw up in my mouth a little bit.
Would it be the shiny gold trunks?
Ugh.
And you know what? I don't think our guest tonight has actually ever been on the recorded part of the podcast. He's a good friend of all of ours.
Wait, this is being recorded? Dang it.
It is.
I gotta watch what I say now.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there is the rule of Joe.
This rule of Joe. This is on the public airwaves. This is the free airwaves. So there's the rule of Joe. So yeah, I don't think we're all good buddies with our guest, but I don't think our guest has actually ever been on the podcast, has he?
I don't think so. Has he ever listened to the podcast? It's most
yeah, that'd be good.
Because if he has, it won't be a great surprise to him. But if he hasn't, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, yes. That'll be the first question we ask him when we get him out of the green room.
Yeah.
I've installed an intercom system.
Have you? After that last episode, we had to say, it was that gaseous mass that came out with, yeah.
I didn't feel it was proper to send any of you guys down there, so now I just kind of open the door, shove them in, and close it.
Okay, wait a minute. So now, other than the stain on the couch, we now have noxious fumes in the green room?
Yeah,
that's one way of putting it.
Yeah. There's kind of a green light. There's kind of a woo. I don't know what's in there.
Yeah, it's funky.
Yeah,
in a bad sort of way.
Yeah, so I'll hit Martyn. Come on into the, or maybe I'll do it on the intercom. Martyn, come on into the studio.
Hello there.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a pungent aroma from that room, isn't there?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the jet lag or the fumes that have affected me.
This is Martyn Jenkins, all the way from Brisbane, but I believe it's actually pronounced Brisbane. from the Gold Coast in Australia, has come all the way to Busted Knuckle, Kentucky, to the 48th floor of the Stuart L. Sterling building in downtown Busted Knuckle, Kentucky. How many hours was that? Was that a direct flight from Brisbane from Sydney into Busted Knuckle?
No, we had to do 6 different transfers. We changed at Fiji, we changed in Hawaii, we changed in LA, and then we got a bus, I think.
Yeah, there's a direct bus now. Hey, you know what I found out the other day? Here's a little interesting fact. Stuart L. Sterling is actually Stuart L. Sterling the Third.
Wow.
Ooh.
I think he's Stuart Sterling the Third. So if we were being technical, the building is actually the Stuart Sterling the Third building.
Very nice.
But I don't think the L was 3 times. I think everybody got their own middle name. So that's a little known fact. I guess we can pretty much call. Well, thanks for coming out, Martyn.
Not a problem. It is rather cool over here as well.
Cool in Kentucky?
Yeah.
Really? Compared to, have you ever?
Well,
It's the middle of the summer.
Well, it is where I came from.
Yeah, it is here too. When you're driving around in your car on the Gold Coast, you'll be saying to yourself, "Boy, it's hotter than something or other here in July or June of 2019, or late May, or early August." Are you coming to the picnic?
Early August.
Are you coming to the picnic?
I won't be coming to the picnic this year, but I'm looking to come over in 2020 for the convention, and maybe we're looking at bringing the AML Jumbo over, and we'll see if we can park it out the back of Tom's place.
Yeah, Tom's stock in 2020. Bring your RV, plug it in, get a spot.
Yeah.
I was going to say something else really interesting. Anyways, who we have here is Martyn Jenkins from, it is Brisbane, right?
That's correct. That's the nearest big city to us.
How far are you from the Gold Coast?
We are on the Gold Coast. We live in a place called Runaway Bay on the Gold Coast.
So how far, wasn't there, when I was looking on the map, is there an actual place called the Gold Coast, or it's just the Gold Coast?
No, it's a region, or the Gold Coast City Council, so it takes up about 4 or 5 different towns down here, but the general area is known as the Gold Coast.
Oh, and is it?
Yes, it's the best surf beaches in Australia. It's the holiday capital where most Australians come to have their holiday. It's full of canal estates where plenty of fishing, right next to the ocean, right next to the Coral Sea. So
it is gold.
It is gold. The beaches are gold.
What's the north-south expanse of that?
You're probably looking at about a 40-mile stretch, 50-mile stretch.
Okay. Just beautiful.
It's it takes you probably about an hour and a half to drive from one end to the other.
Okay. And can you drive on the beach?
Yeah, you can drive down and the road runs all the way along the side of the ocean.
But I mean, like in Daytona Beach, you can drive right on the beach. Can you do that?
No. Well, you could if you wanted to. You just have to dodge the tourists.
Well, you have to do that in Daytona too.
Yeah.
That's the best part about it. You can drive pretty much. I think you can drive pretty much all the way from Daytona and North Daytona all the way down to New Smyrna Beach. It's about like 30, 40 miles.
Well, a lot of people go fishing here, and they'll take their 4-wheel drives right down onto the beach to go fishing, go surf fishing.
Okay. All right. So the main reason we started this is because one night we were all talking. So you're part of our little group of guys that talk on the intranet. We stare at each other on the intranet on the www. And Mike, It was you and me and Mike Spoon, Ostertag, and Chris and a bunch of guys. And Mike, you started to tell us that you're purchasing something from Martyn.
Yeah, I'm going to be purchasing have you ever come up with a name for it yet, Martin? Other than a Sprague DCC?
It's the Sprague Pi 1.
Sprague Pi 1. There we go. That sounds like a spaceship.
I wonder. I just had a thought, Bruce.
Yes.
We didn't have. I wonder if we would have the echoing if we turned our cameras back on.
I don't know.
Let's try turning on the cameras and see if we have the echo. I turned on mine. Because we have an echo. It's gone. It's pretty much gone. That's
Your face is going to stay like that.
It's gone. We're going to have to learn how to do these podcasts now, looking at each other. This is
so you were looking for an echo?
Nope.
No. Well, there was an echo at my end, and occasionally Bruce could hear it. And now there's no echo because we've turned the cameras back on. Well, that's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Another episode of AML things that make you say,
All right. So Spoon, you've bought some sort of a compact DC system from Mr. Jenkins.
Yes. Yeah.
So how did you find out about this?
Well, basically, Martin and I were talking about it, and I was kind of, me, I like to stick with one thing.
Yeah.
And we were just talking one night, and our very own Ralph Renzetti had said to me, because he was on there with us, he said, "You got to talk to Martin about this. He's got this little deal," and I said, "Really?" And I'm going to have a very small layout. I'm not going to have this big sprawling layout. And it's more Martin talked to me about it, the more it sounded right up my alley. So
because you were going to buy an ESU command station or something.
Yeah, the cab control system. I was gonna buy that, and I have a proto throttle, so I wanted something that was going to be compatible with that, and it's nothing against the cab control system. It just seemed like this was a little bit more suited towards what I was going to be doing,
and much more cost effective.
Yes. Yeah, very much so, more cost effective.
So then Martin showed it to us on screen, and it's this little teeny tiny clear plastic box with a bunch of junk in it, and it's a DCC system. What do you call it, Martin? Do you have a name for it?
It's manufactured by a company in the UK called Sprague DCC, who make a little controller. So the board is called a Sprague Pi 1. And it's meant to marry up to the Raspberry Pi mini computer. So, in essence, what you get at the end of the day is a little plug-in board that plugs onto a Raspberry Pi computer that'll give you a 2.5 amp DCC system.
Okay, 2.5 amp DCC system, and it has the Sprague, but you've got a bunch of other stuff in there. Like, it's not just that simple. Like, you make a whole little plastic box and everything.
Yes, well, I've got to source the box, and we made that. We 3D printed the boxes. I got a 3D printer here, but that was taking too long to do, so we ended up getting these laser cut out of acrylic, which is a lot quicker to do and a lot easier. But I basically configured a SD card that goes in there, so this little single board computer, the Raspberry Pi, I mean, it's a fairly powerful machine. It was designed, Raspberry Pi, a bit of the background about where they came from. It was an English company that developed small little computers for children in the third world that could learn software programming, and that's what they were designed for. The maker community and the robot guys all got hold of them and started doing other things with them. And then the model railway fraternity have got hold of them now and are starting to do different things with the computer. But it's basically 3.5 inches by 2.5 inches. It runs I won't bore you with the technical details, but it's a fairly decent CPU in there, and it's got over 1 gigabyte of RAM, so it makes it a decent sized computer. You can actually run Windows 10 if you so wish to run it. So it's a fully fledged computer, and to top it all off, it also has Wi-Fi access as well, so you can connect to it by your mobile phone or by a Wi-Fi computer.
I just realized something. It's there's no echo with the cameras, but I can't look at you guys. Because I can see on one side of the studio, Chris is on his iPad, and then he was tugging on his hair, and Mike is over here soldering something, and the moderately agitated Bruce the mailboy has a hockey game on, and he keeps looking at. So I can't look at you guys, so I'm going to have to look away. I
Would
can't.
it make you feel better if I put a mic boom between me and the camera?
Yeah, I can't. I can't walk and chew gum at the same time either. So don't feel bad. So okay. So does Sprague? So Sprague, I've heard of that thing. So explain if you can. Like, is Sprague making these specific? One of the things they started making them for specifically was model railroading, or it has nothing to do with model railroading, and somebody just stumbled onto this.
No, Sprague have been making a JMRI-based computer programmer for quite a while, and they're well known in Europe and, here in Australia as well. The original Sprague programmer was designed to sit on your workbench, plug directly into your computer, and allow you to use JMRI to, test run your locos or program your locos.
So it's also important, just real quick, Sprague doesn't make Raspberry Pis. I think for a minute you were confusing Raspberry Pi with Sprague, Lionel.
Yes.
Raspberry Pi is the computer. Sprague is a DCC system. So yes, Sprague has always done DCC. Raspberry Pi doesn't know anything about DCC.
Perfect. And Raspberry Pi was the ones that created this thing for the third world countries.
That's
for
correct.
Education.
Yeah.
Right. And then somebody in a company named Sprague said, hey, this would be really cool for model railroading. So when you get the board, Martyn, it already has JMRI on it.
I get the board. No, I've made the computer itself doesn't have a hard drive or anything in it.
Right.
It runs off an SD card, a little SD card. So I've configured the software to run on the SD card to run the operating system for the Ras Pi, like you'd have on any normal computer, and JMRI along with a couple of other little utility programs.
So when you get this board, does it have JMRI on it already, or you add it when you get it?
No, I add it to the boards when I get it.
It's two boards sandwiched together.
Two boards.
Okay, I thought you said earlier that Sprague was making these with JMRI.
No.
That's why
Sprague make this board.
Right.
And that's the Raspberry Pi board.
Right.
They're made by two separate companies.
Right. So
and they clip together.
The JMRI is on the Raspberry Pi.
Yes.
Okay. So what is Sprague making then? What exactly is it? What part of this are they making? If the JMRI is on the Raspberry Pi, which I wonder how they came up with that name. If the computer lingo, it's Ras Pi.
Yes.
So the Ras Pi has JMRI on it. So what is Sprague doing?
So Sprague made the board that adds a DCC system to your Ras Pi.
Okay.
So the Raspberry Pi can't talk to decoders. It has no way of connecting to a model railway layout.
Okay.
So this board plugs in on top, and then that gives you a signal out that you plug into your layout, and you can start running trains.
Okay.
So another thing, Lionel, you might help to understand. Sprague has made these little plastic boxes with a USB cable on them for over 10 years. You could plug that into a Raspberry Pi too, or a computer, or just about anything that's got a USB port that run either Linux or Windows or Mac OS or whatever. And then they realized, we could save a few bucks if we just made this a simple board that plugged right in the Raspberry Pi, because people were using this $35 computer to run their DCC system with JMRI. and then plug in the Sprague in through the USB port, which is a completely acceptable solution. But it's the USB box is like $100 itself, and so by making this hat, which is what you call a board that plugs into the top of a Raspberry Pi, they saved a considerable amount of money. Now the whole thing is like $100.
Okay.
Or so, and Martyn can get into that because he knows the numbers.
Yeah, and that's correct. And they're round. The beauty about it then is it's all in one box, whereas before you used to have two boxes, your Raspberry and your little Sprague programmer.
Right.
Now it's all in one 3.5 inch by 2.5 inch footprint.
But when they send it to you, there's no acrylic box for it to sit in.
No, I put the acrylic box together and machine it out so that it'll fit all the connectors for the additional board that's put on top.
Yeah, because you were showing us it has like 4 USB connectors.
Yes, yep, it has 4 USB connectors. And as I said, it's running the full version of JMRI on there. So anything you can do on JMRI on a standard desktop or laptop computer, you can do on this.
Right.
If you wanted to interface to other equipment, you can use the USB ports.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a standalone computer specifically for your model railroad.
Exactly. Where I've found a big niche for these in Australia is people that run exhibition layouts and go to shows or have little demo layouts that they do clinics on and the likes. Instead of having to pull a whole DCC system apart and take it to a show, they can buy one of these and actually build it into the layout. The club I'm involved with is actually all their exhibition layouts have one of these built into it. So when we go to a show, they basically set the layout up, plug one power cord into one of the modules, go and get a cup of coffee, come back, take their mobile phones out, and they're starting to drive trains.
Okay, Martyn, does the system also have the capability to interface with a computer or something like that, so you could also print out switch lists?
Well, it is a computer. So on the actual Raspberry Pi, you've got a HDMI port and 4 USBs. So
Right.
if you wanted to, you could plug it into a HDMI monitor, plug in a keyboard and a mouse, and access the JMRI on the Raspberry Pi just like a normal computer.
Okay.
Print out switch lists, do whatever you like. It also has an Ethernet connection on it as well, so you could connect it to your home network. And,
So then basically it's just, I mean, I feel like I want to buy one of these things just to try it and see if I can plug in, like, I mean, you were showing us the other night and it's JMRI is on there. So, I mean, if I was to buy one and just plug it into my display, would it make sense to me?
Yep. There's only 2 wires, 2 connections that come out, and you connect those up to your track. There's 2 power supplies that plug in, 1 power supply for each board. So to power the computer, you've got a 5-volt USB power supply, and then to power the Sprague board to give you your DCC power, you've got a 12-volt power supply going into that.
Like one of those typical wall plug power, 12-volt power supplies.
Yep, just a little wall wart.
And what is the 5-volt? Where would that come from?
That'd come from another wall wart. So the Raspberry Pi board on the bottom here has 1 power supply.
Right.
And then the board on the top has its separate power supply.
Can you buy 5-volt power supplies?
Yeah, just a mobile phone charger.
Micro USB charger for your phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like an Android phone's charger.
All right. So just a typical phone charger.
Yep.
Would plug in there. So that's so then it's not that hard. So okay. So Lionel now gets his little computer. He's got a 12-volt plug-in. He's got his phone charger plugged. Is it a mini USB that is what it takes?
That's correct.
Okay, so then I plug.
Is it mini or micro? I'd have to look.
Micro. Sorry,
Right.
micro.
Yeah, I think it's a micro.
So anyways, it's obvious which kind of phone plug plugs in there. So I get my 12-volt. I plug it in. And then I get my phone charger and I plug it in, and then I plug in my HDMI cable from my display to the thing, and how do you turn it on?
As soon as you put power onto it, it'll start booting up.
And how long does it take to boot up?
These ones with all the software I've got on, they take about 30 seconds to boot up.
So not very long at all.
No.
And then
it's not like sitting down waiting for a computer to boot up.
And so you were showing us the other day it had the JMRI software on there already.
That's correct.
And you just start playing with it.
You just start playing with it. When you get it, you should be able to plug the power into it, connect it to your track, connect your mobile phone to it by following the simple instructions in the manual, and which is no different to connecting your phone to, say, your home network or a Wi-Fi network, and start up engine driver, and you can start driving trains.
So before I get that far, though, I'm just going to play. I mean, how much is this going to cost me now?
They're around about $160.
Yeah, but how much is it going to cost me?
$500 just for you. So,
Yes.
if you don't add in the cost of the monitor and the keyboard, which, by the way, you could run this without a monitor. You mentioned plugging in a monitor, but if you could, you get this all set up. You just log into remotely from your laptop, so you don't have to have its own dedicated monitor.
Yep.
Oh yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yep.
It has Bluetooth capability.
But it has Ethernet, right? It's got Wi-Fi and Ethernet and everything, which is how you connect it through the Y throttle.
Right.
When you buy them off me, I pre-configure them with a software package called VNC Remote, which is a remote control piece of software.
All right. Chris is showing me something. What are you showing me there, Chris?
That's the one I bought from Martyn when we were in Kansas City. It's even got Martyn's business card in there.
Oh, okay.
Which is what that was. I can't figure out where the camera is. But
all right. Yeah. Okay. I got it.
actually, it says Melbourne 83 on it.
Yep.
All right.
That's the name of the layout here.
So all right. So okay. But for a Dumbo like me that wants to play with the JMRI, I can just plug my display into it, and away I go.
You can. You can plug a HDMI.
Yeah, and then I can plug. And if I want to start playing around with a locomotive, I just need to run two power wires, two typical DCC feeders from that to the computer. I could set up a little test track, and away I go.
Martyn,
Correct.
Did you set this up so it would create its own Wi-Fi hotspot, or do you have to have a Wi-Fi router running?
No. This thing will create its own access point.
Yeah.
So when you get these systems, it'll start up Wi-Fi throttle. It'll automatically connect JMRI to the Wi-Fi network, and it'll just basically be sitting there waiting for a mobile device to connect.
All right, seriously, Spoon, are you getting any of this? He's frozen. His mic is on mute, and he's frozen.
He's like Lambeau Field right now.
Yeah. Mike is the frozen spoon of Green Bay, Wisconsin. He got his internet fixed, he thought.
Yes. rumor had it.
Okay,
he just doesn't have any internet in the basement.
Yeah. Okay, this sounds like it could be a lot of fun. Like Bruce, I mean, I know you're more of a computer guy than me, Bruce. I mean, does this sound as simple as it?
This to me sounds like it's the answer to a lot of people, like Martyn said, are running exhibition layouts and don't want to have to lug boxes and boxes of stuff around. And I think particularly more so in the sort of exhibition format that you see in the UK and Australia, where you have smaller layouts, depicting, stations or something like that, not big rambling layouts. So you may have one or two locomotives on the layout type thing. And to me, this would be perfect for that kind of thing. And obviously, too, I'm sure if you, once guys like Chris and Mike get playing with these things and others in North America, that you can certainly apply to the big layouts that you see some shows. I think the Sipping and Switching Society guys, maybe they're a little too big, but this is
like
micro micro sizing, I guess, of control and simplification.
How big of a layout could you run with this thing?
Well, 2.5 amps. I mean, we run our club's layout, HO layout on it, and it's 14 meters. It'd probably be about 30 something odd meters continuous run, and we have up to 4 or 5 trains on there, and it's running on one Raspberry Pi.
So modern locomotives need like 500 milliamps each. So you wouldn't want to run more than 5. You wouldn't want to run more than 5, and the distance also. If you have it too long, you're going to have a voltage drop, and especially if you're running it maxed out. It's really meant to be for a small setup.
So like,
could you run a booster station on it if you had to?
You can always. Well, what we've done where we need more power is I've used the Tam Valley 5 amp boosters, and all you do is just daisy chain off the output of the Pi Sprog to the Tam Valley 5 amp boosters, and they can give you as much power then as you want.
So, Martyn, what about running a DCC++ system with it? Have you looked at that?
I've built a few DCC++ systems. How I found out about this system was in 2016. Late 2015, the new Raspberry Pi came out, which brought in onboard Wi-Fi. So for the first time, the Raspberry Pi started bringing in Wi-Fi. And then I saw on the Sprog website these boards. So I decided to buy a couple and put them together and just see how they worked. I did a little clinic and went to the narrow gauge convention. I sold the one that I'd built for a demo model at the narrow gauge convention and came away with people wanting me to make 6 or 7 of them. But the idea behind it all originally was to do a clinic and show people how they can do DIY DCC. Now, the other DIY DCC system, as Chris mentioned, is the DCC++, which uses the Arduino boards. The problem with using that system is you need to know a bit about upload programs into an Arduino. You need to do some external wiring. And if you want to run JMRI, you have to add a Raspberry Pi to the Arduino anyway.
Well, you need a computer to program the Arduino, so you could use any computer that you've used. So, but what I said is about a booster. You're using a commercial booster, but if you really wanted the DIY spirit, you'd use a DCC++ as your booster. And
well, you could use a DCC an Arduino as the DCC booster from.
So basically, for you guys that are wondering what the heck a DCC++ is that's another kind of DIY program where somebody took an Arduino, which is even a less expensive, less powerful microcontroller board that a lot of people are very familiar with, figured out that if they added a motor driver board to the top of it, and for an Arduino, they call that a shield, not a hat, and that you would basically have everything you need to make your own DCC booster. And so then you had a computer running JMRI, and you did that, and then that is a really affordable way to get somebody going that really wants to spend like less than $50 to get going, and they already have a computer with a monitor, but they just need something to make the put the power on the track. But anyway, I think the Tam Valley, and I know exactly what you're saying, Martyn. There's a certain level of DIY. I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty involved with DCC++, although realistically people could make them and sell them, in a box and everything. But anyway.
So how did the DCC++ system come about?
Well, it's just that somebody was saying, how could I make a very affordable booster or JMRI, command station? And they realized that JMRI really has all the intelligence that you need. It just needs a way to get the power to the track.
Okay, so
so they took an Arduino and wrote some code, and then the key is getting the 2.5 amps or 2 amps or whatever it is, and a motor driver has big power drivers on it, and so it has the ability to drive the large amounts of current needed to do DCC, and so it fits right on top of the Arduino, just like an Ethernet shield or just about any other add-on to an Arduino. But it's a pretty slick setup, and there's an active community, and it really does fit really well with what Martyn's doing. If you did want to make more current, if you wanted to get more current, distributed around your layout and whatnot.
Right. So, Martyn, you started doing this strictly as a DIY thing for guys, but what happened was you just ended up making them for them.
Well, that was the idea. I thought, I could put kits of all the bits and pieces in together, and they could. I did a video on YouTube, and they could go off and assemble it themselves. But I kept getting requests. I kept getting requests from everyone saying, "No, can you put it together for me?" And so the last year and a half has been it's happening at the moment. I've got boxes of Raspberries in front of me, and I'm putting together systems, which basically is just clipping the two boards together and putting the SD card in. So it's no great technical.
The magic for you is you've got the slick little double stacked case with the heatsink and everything. Which, when I talked to you in Kansas City, I thought, oh, no problem. I'll just pick one of those up anywhere. Well, they're not as easy to find as you might expect. So I haven't got my case yet.
And you got the case. I mean, Martyn, this is pretty slick what you've done here. I mean, I think you've almost talked me into buying one just to try it because JMRI is cool. So basically, what you're saying, I think I'm beginning to pick this up, Bruce. That's kind of scary.
Look out!
Yeah, he's nodding.
Stand back. Stand back. There's no stopping him now.
So basically, JMRI is a guts of a DCC. It's the brains of the DCC system.
Yes.
It's installed on the Raspberry. It's installed on the Raspberry by Sprague.
Yep. Or by me.
It doesn't come installed. I thought it doesn't.
No. I put the software package together on the SD card.
So what
it's just a matter of copying the SD card.
Well, what are you getting? What are you getting from Sprague then? You're getting a DCC system on a board on a Raspberry Pi.
On a board. Yep, that plugs into the Raspberry Pi.
So the reason people are so wanting you to do it is because when you get a hold of it, you're making it even that much simpler.
Yes.
Like, tell people what it is you do for a living.
My background is I'm electronics engineering. I did my apprenticeship in a car factory and specialised in robotics, and then I worked in the lift industry for ages, and now I work for the state government as an inspector for the electrical safety office.
Right. So if I'm building a house down there, you can just come in there, no problem. So
yep, give it the tick of approval.
Yeah. So, okay, between you and Chris, then, you two guys are like electronic whizzes. So how about this for an idea? Martyn, you send mine to Chris, and then Chris, you fly up to my house.
I was quietly giving Spoon the thumbs up, and you guys just started giggling like a bunch of schoolgirls. There he is.
Well, I thought you were giving me the thumbs up about flying up to my place and installing my.
Oh yeah, I'm on top of it. No problem.
Spoon is
how do I sound?
Horrible.
You sound like you're in a basement.
Do I actually sound bad?
Yeah, well, not great.
You're a little overmodulated.
Yeah, you're overmodulated.
Just a hair.
Yeah,
but no worries, you can get medication for that.
Yeah.
You're overmodulated for more than 4 hours. See a doctor.
Yeah.
Well, I've got my headset plugged into my phone.
Well, how about unplugging it from your phone and just trying your phone?
I don't know how you sound, but watching your videos make it be a little seasick.
Yeah.
like he's floating in space.
How's your internet working? How's your internet working?
Not good.
Well, now it was like 3 months ago I released that show, Mike Fixes the Internet. 4 months ago, Mike Fixes the Internet. Now it's not working again.
Apparently it was a limited time offer.
Well, it's not with my computer. That's and with anything, something outside of the house must have happened because it's out throughout. I mean, everything is down. It's not just me in the basement.
Okay. Do you see a big orange glow outside at all?
I don't want to look.
Yeah.
Is Lambeau Field okay?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe that's what's wrong with Aaron Rodgers. Okay, so Martyn, this all sounds very cool to me. I feel like, so how much is it going to cost me?
Oh, I don't know. We'll have to work out a deal. We'll have to work out a deal.
So are you like just wishing you never even suggested this, and now people are just hounding you to build these things?
Well, I did start off with that. I started off, I actually put the price up twice to try and stop people from, kept the price of the kit the same, but put the assembled one. And I ended up getting more orders. The more expensive, every time we put it up, we got more orders. And in the last year, I say I've probably done about, it'd have to be over between 100 and 140.
Wow. Now, how long does it take you to make one?
It takes probably about 40 minutes, 45 minutes to put one together.
Yeah, and then
Really?
it
Surprises me.
Why?
Well, because I put one together, it didn't take me that long. I wonder what are you doing? That's
You don't
different?
even have the box, the acrylic box, so it's not together.
No, but yeah,
I
just
have
a
another
machine out.
box. I don't have the cool box he's
Yeah.
got with the heat sink.
Well, yours is in a box.
Yeah, I was trying to find it.
Yeah.
Mine's a half-height box. And
It's
so
the
when I put
cider.
that thing on there,
The cider
it sticks
flows
up.
the other direction down in Australia. That's what the
Yeah,
problem is.
solder goes the wrong way, and I've been working for the state government for too long now, so
that's it.
No,
Hey,
the other
Martyn,
thing I think too is that people view electronics as I cannot do that, and most people will gladly pay somebody to put in a DCC decoder or whatever because they're just not confident. Like you look back in the days with a lot of these projects here and there, they were relatively simple to do and fun. And so if you've got a little bit of electronic experience, this is probably not a big deal. But if you're moderately afraid and you say, "Well, I do that," and the magic smoke came out of my $180 box.
Yeah.
Now what do I do? So in their minds, it's a comfort level knowing that Martyn's putting this thing together. It's got the Martyn seal of approval, and it's going to work. Is get it and plug it in.
It's just unfortunate.
And the other thing, Martyn. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we've discovered tonight, thanks to Chris, that Martyn's a little slow.
Well, no, Martyn is thorough, I think, is what we discovered.
Martyn is
And
fastidious.
Chris is not. No, Martyn, one thing I think is also
He's
worth
walking
talking
back
about
a
is,
statement.
yeah. Anyway, so you've added a lot. You put together the distribution on the SD card. What have you done that is different than just unzipping a distribution of Raspberry Pi OS? What have you done to it?
Well, it's got when you put it in, it's automatically set up so the OS will have JMRI auto start and auto run. So that means you don't have to plug a monitor or anything in there to see what's happening. And then configure JMRI to start up and start the Wi-Fi server so that you can connect straight through, and to do the connection between the Ras Pi and the Wi-Fi of the DCC system, or the Sprog board. So and then
you forgot the part where you have it automatically send everybody's bank account information back to your house. Because that's really important.
Well, the funniest thing about this is I've put so many of them together. I've got all the passwords that everybody's asked me. So
nobody bothers to change it.
No one bothers to change it. So I use my mobile phone, and we'll go to like the Brisbane train show, and there'll be 8 different layouts there, all using a Sprog, and I can connect to every one of them. So
Nice.
I've had a bit of fun there where I've sat there turning the track power off on someone's layout while they've got 15 people standing in front of it looking at the layout, and and all of a sudden the owner dives underneath the bench looking at power plug hasn't come out or something, and then turn the track power back on again. So we've had a bit of fun.
Games.
So it comes with a standard password in it. You didn't tell me that.
Yes.
I got to have a password.
Yep, it'll in the documentation it tells you all the 2 passwords, the username and the password that you'll need to enter, and that's it.
And then
that's something else he didn't tell you. You're gonna have to be able to read the documentation line.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I have a question now. You're saying that this thing doesn't need a monitor or whatever. So how are you supposed to be able to see what's coming up so you know when to put a password in?
You don't. If you're not doing any changes to it, you don't need to enter the system. You don't need to enter a password or the likes. And you use Engine Driver in your mobile phone to connect to it.
All right.
So when your mobile phone, you'll start your mobile phone up, and it'll say, "Oh, look, there's the Pi Sprog. What's the username and password to enter it?" Once that's in, and once you've done it once, your mobile phone will remember it, and you won't have to change it again.
Okay, so it's just you need to enter it when your phone's connected to it to run the thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, so basically, you're just running basic JMRA with not the programming or anything like that on it. If you want to use that or the car distribution, you'd have to have a monitor and some sort of keyboard to make it work.
Yeah, if you want to do programming, it has Decoder Pro and everything in there, and you can use it as a programming tool. That's what Ralph got one off me for. He wanted to set it up on his workbench so he can just use it just for doing tweaking and tuning of logos on his workbench.
Right.
I think that's the first thing. That's the first thing I'd do with it is just set up a test track and start playing with decoders.
Yeah, that's really why I got it too. I really wanted it as a programming track rather than my main command station.
Now, can you run Decoder Pro through your phone or no?
No, but because I've put VNC remote in there, you can get your laptop. You can connect your laptop to the Sprog, just like you connect any other Wi-Fi device.
Right.
And you can put in the IP address, and you can get the desktop. You take remote control of the Raspberry Pi on your laptop computer.
Sweet.
That's all very cool. So how much is this going to cost me? So
you don't want him telling you on the air because he'll have to give you the price that he'd give everybody listening.
Oh, okay. How many of these have you sold? You know what? In North America, many people refer to going to Britain or Europe as going across the pond. What's the slang for going to America from Australia?
Going across the pond, but the big pond.
The warm pond.
The big pond, because we got a little ways to go before we even get to the Pacific Ocean, because Australia is not on the Pacific Ocean.
Where is it?
It's on the Coral Sea and the Tasman Sea.
Oh, and is there like a line or something where then the Pacific Ocean starts?
Basically, past Fiji.
Fiji.
Yeah.
I don't like this thing where I can have the cameras going because I keep seeing Chris with his hand in his head in his hands, like as if he's just doing his taxes or something.
I'm reading something on the table.
So now, does yours work, Chris? Have you used it at all? No, he hasn't. I have
set it up and accessed it through JMRI. I've got that all working, but I haven't had really anything to hook it up to other than just to make it.
You've actually turned it on and had it going.
Yeah, I've had it.
So
I got the firmware installed and got it all running.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so has Mike got his yet?
I have a box right behind me that will be going to the post office.
Oh, you should make that extra special and don't put a return address on it and make it look like 8 times bigger than a Raspberry Pi, so that when he gets it, he thinks it's a bomb.
And then I'll call the local
and then he'll call the police.
Yeah. Well, that's what they do in Wisconsin. If it doesn't smell of cheese, they call the cops.
Yeah. And Martyn, what you should do for his, get a couple of those plastic spoons and throw a couple in there.
Yeah.
And a voting sausage. Get him a voting sausage or election sausage.
What's a voting sausage?
Tell us about election sausages.
When we have elections over here, they're always on a Saturday, and they're at the local school. So the local P&C association or the school put on a sausage sizzle, so you can buy a sausage in a bun like a hot dog. So you can go and vote and buy a hot dog at the same time.
A sausage sizzle. You know what, Bruce? We ought to have the AML sausage sizzle.
I think it should be for coming in 2019, the AML sausage sizzle.
Yeah, it's sausage sizzle, and you got to say it.
That's easy for you guys to say.
Yeah.
I don't know about Canada, but I think everything about what you guys are doing in Australia, we need to copy because first of all, we need to have our elections on Saturdays, and we need to have sausages as part of it. I think
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
a must.
Yep.
So, how many of you sold across the pond? Then, how many of you sold in America, or in North America?
Probably 2 when I send balloons over
So
there.
it's a
Yeah,
big
you sold
market
more.
for you then, yes.
You sold more than 2 in Kansas
Oh,
City.
sorry. I've sold 4 in total, then including Chris and Speed and Mike's one, and I've sent one to Ralph.
All right.
Oh, I thought you sold a bunch of them in Kansas City. I thought you sold like a half dozen after your clinic.
Yeah, the American distributor did.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Oh, there's an American.
I'm
Oh, that's
sorry.
right. There's some unhappiness between you and the American distributor.
Oh, not unhappiness. It's just that, yeah.
He's mad because Martyn cut out his 4 sales to American customers.
yeah.
Yeah. So you can buy them off him, or you can send me an email.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm buying mine off of you, and we'll
Yeah.
determine the price off the air.
We're going to negotiations.
Yeah, we'll go into heavy negotiations. All right, so let's find out. That's all cool, and I'm glad we talked about it, and I'm glad Mike is. I'd love to talk to Mike about it, but he can't modulate.
Do I sound better now?
You do. What did you do?
That's
Yep.
because I'm talking lower.
Oh, there you go. You're almost whispering.
I'm almost whispering.
Oh,
Yes.
I like that, Mike, when you're whispering.
Oh, jeez.
He's practicing for AML after dark.
Yeah. Yes, Mike will be leading the new channel AML After Dark. So, Mike, do you have any idea what you're going to do? You feel confident you're going to be able to operate this thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. My layout will not need much more than that.
Okay. So are you
so
going
it
are
No,
you
go
gonna
ahead.
are you gonna hook it to a monitor first just to see if you can get the thing fired up? Like that's what I think I would do is I would just hook it to my monitor, see if I get it fired up.
I'll definitely play around with it. And I've got a couple of spare monitors here that are actually just leftovers from old computers and stuff. So I'll hook one of those up to it, and I'll see exactly what it does, and I'll get my feet wet. And I know where customer support lives, so
Yeah.
if need be, I can always give them a ring. And
I made Mike the offer of a free installation service if he bought the bus fare.
Yeah. Well, don't
So
leave.
what's the bus from Busted Knuckle, Kentucky to Lambeau Field? What's that cost?
Yeah, it's like
Depends if you get the local or the express.
yeah.
that's the cheap part that's the cheap part. It's the submarine service between Australia and North America.
Yeah,
It's kind of
Yeah, but I'm surprised.
dicey.
I'm surprised he didn't bring it with him. He's already in Kentucky now. Like, why doesn't he just hand it to you in the studio? Like, why do you guys have to have all this?
Here you go,
Yeah.
Mike.
It's customs. It's all about customs.
Thanks.
Hey, you know what? I gotta go off topic for a minute. Bruce, help me on this one, because you.
Sure, I'll try.
Mike Wachowski said to me, or sent us in an email, or said somewhere, he feels like he's learned more on listening to this podcast in the last couple of years than he had in the last 20 in model railroading. I feel like the same way. Like, this is so cool. Like, this is something I want to try.
Well, like listen to these guys, then I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, I think I'm
I'm
gonna.
gonna pull up my 3-foot piece of brass flex track with the fiber ties and hook it up and see what I can do.
I'm gonna get one of these. I'm gonna get one of these, Martyn.
They're very cool.
Not a problem.
Sounding.
All right, so Martyn, let's find out. Let's find, and if you can't help me, I can always get Chris to fly up. Are you doing your taxes, Chris?
No, it's like the like 3 days after Christmas. Why the heck would I be doing my taxes? I got like 4 months.
What is
You know, what was funny is I was looking at flights to Ireland, and I could fly through Toronto pretty cheap.
There you go.
Canada Air.
Yeah.
Dallas to Toronto, Toronto to Dublin.
Perfect.
You going back to Ireland? Or are you
Yeah.
going to Ireland?
He's in Scotland before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in Scotland. I was in Ireland a couple of years ago, but
Yeah.
But this is audio. Keep talking.
oh well, there's nothing really to it. We were just looking at the possibility of maybe going there. Maybe
There's always something to it when it comes to you, Chris. The fans love to hear what you're doing.
No, my wife didn't come with us. It was a trip my mom and I made, and I told her maybe we'd do a trip, like a long weekend to Dublin if we could. We were looking at these flights through Iceland, through Reykjavik, and all summer they were just cheap.
You probably
And so I looked to see if they still had the flights, and my wife said something like, "Oh, maybe we could go in April." And I looked, and no flights through Iceland. So one of the cheapest flights I found was actually, strangely enough, was through Toronto.
You know who you're going to meet up coming the other way in Iceland? Our old buddy Gordy Robinson.
In January, probably, right?
Every place he flies, even if he's flying from Scotland to the south of France, he goes through Iceland. All right, Marty, tell us. I want to know about okay, we've spent enough time on this. So you were born in Australia. You're an Australian.
No, I wasn't born in Australia. I was born in South Wales in the UK.
Okay, so
the land of songs and valleys.
Oh, is that what?
And then you say, so you spent your youth in South Wales, right, Marty?
No, and then my parents, when I was a kid, emigrated to South Africa.
Really?
And I spent about 7 years in Durban in South Africa during the 70s, from I think it was 71 to 76. And then we arrived in the sunny shores of Australia in 1976.
Okay, so how old were you when you moved to South Africa? Do you remember?
Probably about 6 or 7.
Okay, and were you like everybody else? Did you start model railroading because at some point your mom and dad put a train under the tree?
No, I didn't get into model railroading till I was probably in my 40s.
Really?
Yep, I've always built scale models, scale military models, and I always had a fascination with carnival rides. And one day I went up to a shop that sold the fallow range of carnival rides and bits and pieces, and they had a large scale layout there. Well, by the time I'd left the shop, I'd been talked into building a layout. And as my wife says, it's not a hobby, it's an addiction because it's just taken over.
Okay, and so you've been in model railroading now about 35 years, 35 years?
Oh, no, about, not that long, no.
You said you started 50. In your 40s.
I'm not in my 90s.
No, I put you around 75, 77.
No, 53.
Oh, geez. Have you seen a doctor?
Yeah, I know. I've got to go and see several.
Okay.
One's not enough.
So you've been in the hobby then roughly 10, 15 years?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Before that, I used to, my hobby was the music industry. Ever since I was a kid, I learned how to play percussion. I can sight read. So I've played in everything from 25-piece big bands doing Glenn Miller stuff through to 3-piece blues bands playing at bikie venues.
Do you have any do you have any recordings of your music?
Yeah, there's some recordings. There's actually some on the YouTube channel of some live gigs from about 1986.
Oh, cool.
So about 10 years ago, I got totally sick. It wasn't a hobby anymore. It was a job. Got fed up of being out at 3 o'clock in the morning, trying to get out of pubs and venues and packing gear up and lugging gear from one gig to a next gig and the like. So I decided, that was it. And then I found model trains, and now I hump model railway layouts around the place instead of drum kits. So I'm doing the same thing.
And you're still closing the bar up at 3 in the morning?
Exactly.
So were you always a plastic modeler? Like as a kid, were you building plastic models?
Plastic models and radio control models, flying models.
Okay. So you were in the RC
So,
car. All right, RC planes.
RC planes and plastic scale, military scale models.
All right. So you've always been in the model building genre then.
Exactly. It's just now I'm doing model railway models. They're still the same skills.
Right. Yeah. All right. So, and what are you building? What kind of layout are you building?
Well, about 6 years ago, we built this shed. We built a shed in the backyard, which is going to be my new layout. And we're still in construction. I reckon we'll be in construction in 20 years' time. But I'm trying to put together a layout based on Melbourne in 1983. I model in HO. I model an Australian prototype, which is the Victorian Railways, which is from the state of Victoria. And I'm trying to do a layout based on different scenes around Melbourne in 1983. The reason I picked 1983 is Victorian Railways changed their name and livery from VR to V-Line in that year. So there's two different liveries you can run. They used to run four-wheel wagons back then, and they also used to run guards vans. So it means I can run guards vans or cabooses. And I can run four-wheel wagons.
So yeah, four-wheel like freight cars.
Yeah, four-wheel freight cars, cattle cars, and the likes.
What's the gauge of the railroad in Australia?
Well, that could be a subject for another whole podcast. But depending where you are, there could be up to five different gauges in the country. Victoria, where we originally moved to when we came to Australia, which is where the city of Melbourne is the largest city, it runs on 5'3". And then you get to the next state, which is New South Wales, and it runs on 4'8". And then you get to where we live currently in Queensland, and it's 3'6".
Really?
So we run three gauges here. You can now actually get on a train in Melbourne and go all the way to Brisbane on 4'8" rail. But up until probably 20, 30 years ago, at each state border, you would have to stop, and they would either do a bogie exchange on the rolling stock, or you get off and get onto a different train and then continue on that particular network.
Okay. Now, who's breathing into their microphone? Is that the spoon? The spoon is fighting with his internet.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think he's frozen again.
Yes. You said HO scale. Is it actually HO or is it 00? So I know a lot of Australian is HO, right?
Yeah, all Australian modelling is HO.
Okay.
In the early days, up until probably 10, 15 years ago, if you wanted to model HO prototype or Australian prototype, you were basically in the land of kit assembly and kit bashing. Because there were no ready-to-run models. No, there was only maybe one or two manufacturers who brought out maybe brass models. So unless you had the coin to be able to go and buy them, you were relegated to scratch building and kit bashing things to make them look like an Australian prototype. The last 20 years have been companies like Oscision, Austrains, Eureka, SDS Models have come on the scene, and you can buy ready-to-run now Australian rolling stock, just as good a quality as anything else around the world. I mean, they all come from the same factory in China as Atlas or Athern or anyone like that builds their rolling stock, but it's all Australian prototype.
How big is the hobby in Australia? It seems like it's pretty big. I mean, right, like we get a lot of listeners in Australia. Like, how big is the hobby in Australia?
The hobby is quite big here. When you consider Australia only has a population of 23 million, the NMRA here has a membership just under 800 people, which is comparable to what it has in the UK. Yet in the UK, there's 60-odd million people live there. So it's 3 times the population. The hobby's quite big around here, and there's quite a few people we've bumped into you wouldn't think were into model trains that are into model trains.
Well, yeah, that don't get me started on that. This hobby's way bigger than anybody thinks it is.
Oh yeah.
Way bigger. I'm telling you, this. I might as well say it again. I say it on every show. This hobby's going to explode, and we're all going to be covered with model railroad goo. The social media is going to make it explode. So okay, so the hobby's big, and like, is there a lot of shows and stuff?
We last year our club. I love going to shows, and 19 shows last year.
Wow.
So during the year we went to 19, and we haven't travelled far from our home base to do that either. Just in southeast Queensland where I live, within 200 kilometres, there's probably at least 10 shows a year. And then we might do a trip down to Sydney or one of the bigger shows down there, and have a weekend down there.
And like, do you belong to a club or?
I belong to a club which is a 100% NMRA club. I was the division super in Queensland here, which of the 800 members in the NMRA, about 260 reside in Queensland. In the area where I live. I was the div super for 11 years.
Are you like Bruce? Are you like Bruce Kelly? Once you get involved, you just kind of take over.
Yeah, I can't help myself. I just can't help myself. I get involved in something, and it's like, if you're not going to get in there, boots and all, well, like they say in Australia, they have a saying: "Go hard or go home."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, well, if you don't participate, you're not going to get any benefit out of it.
Exactly, and I hear all the banter about NMRA and the likes, and the NMRA in Australia is a totally different beast. It's much more of a friendship and an association of it's a lot more easygoing.
But they don't have any of their newsletters or anything online, though, do they? Don't you have to?
Yep,
It's only paper copies.
Nope. I think we make about 12 paper copies each episode for the 12 people who have not found the internet or a computer, and they're still usually running Hornby clockwork stuff.
Lionel, can I ask the next question, please?
Sure.
And Martyn, what format do you send the electronic copies of your little thing in?
What format? What the
your digital?
Like
is it a PDF?
The information?
Well, no, like your newsletter. Your how do you send it out?
Oh, yes, it's PDF. Sorry, yeah, we have the NMRA. If you go to the NMRA AR website, you can click on a link there. It takes you to Mainline, and they're all PDF copies.
And
anybody can download them.
And somebody has gone to all the trouble of scanning, like, all the way back to like 20 years.
Yep, yeah, we've got all the archives are online now. What we're looking at doing now is putting all our videos, local videos, up on an archive as well, so that the members can get them online. And we're going to phase out our library, because that's another thing that costs us money.
All right. So do you think the NMRA in across the pond in North America, do you think they know that the internet exists, or?
I'm hoping the new batch that have gone in will rectify that and change that.
Okay.
It's all got to be seen to be heard. But we did a couple of things this year at our convention which were a bit different, which we've had requests from the National to provide more information about how we did it and how they were received. And that was, we actually had Ralph Renzetti do a weathering clinic online, and we had Miles Hale do a clinic online, and we live streamed them into the convention venue.
How'd that go? Did it go pretty good?
Miles is one he had a problem, I think, with his audio, his end, but we managed to get through it and it was okay. But when Ralph did his, that really proved that the concept can work.
Yeah.
He had a better internet connection, and plus because he's done it before with YouTube Model Builders and a couple of other online groups, he was all set up and ready to go. But it proved that the concept can work. So that means that you could get anyone from anywhere around the world to do a clinic in any convention.
Now, didn't you also try something else totally radically different with a dinner speaker from a
we did. We did. We had the dulcet tones of Lionel Strang for our after dinner speaker, and that proved successful as well. I mean, that could work. We had a bit of a dodgy internet connection at the club, so his video kept freezing every now and again. But apart from that,
and people kept getting up and leaving the room.
Well, there was a big football game on that night, and the bar was outside of the room.
Oh, now you're telling me I was up against a football game. Who was playing?
I think it was the North Queensland Cowboys and the Sydney Roosters, I think.
All right, okay. So what about retail? Are there retail model shops in Australia?
There are, but unfortunately and sadly, the hobby shop scene in Australia, or specifically in Brisbane, Melbourne and Sydney are slightly different, but we've gone from probably having 5 sort of model train hobby shops or model railway hobby shops, and we're down to about 1 now, 1 or 2.
Wow, you had as many as 5.
Yeah, the internet has really made it hard for retailers here, and the retailers that are surviving are generally the ones that are selling a majority of Australian outline, because people can buy, the American outline and all the rest of it from so many places from the States so much cheaper. To give you an example, an N-scale Kato Loco, even though it's made by Kato USA, it's sold into Australia via Kato Japan, who also then put their markup on it. So a Kato Loco you might pay, say, $110 for in the US. In Australia, you'll pay nearly $300 for.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a huge difference, and it's affected the retailers. So unless you model a European or Australian outline, you're not going to survive as a retailer in Australia because you can buy it online so much cheaper.
So when you say
and have it.
When you say outline, that sounds like an Australian term to me, doesn't it? To you, Bruce?
Prototype.
No, because I'm familiar with the term British outline, U.S. outline. It's just
I've never heard it before.
Yeah, no, British outline means you're modeling British. Australian outline means you're modeling Australian. U.S. outline means you're modeling U.S. North American.
Have you ever heard that before, Chris? Chris.
No, I've never have.
It's audio, Chris.
No, I have not.
What are you working on? Chris, this is why we can't have the cameras on. What are you working on?
I think Chris is doing Sudokus.
Yeah. Yeah. He's doing his taxes.
Here's what I'm working on.
I'm recording another podcast while we're recording this one.
So how popular is go ahead. I'm sorry, Chris.
Oh, I was just going to ask, I just wanted to ask Martyn if a lot of people, or if you know a lot of people that have modeled Tasrail at all.
There's a couple of guys down in New South Wales that do Tasmanian Railway, and they do it in S-scale, so it'd be an SN3. S-scale's pretty big in Queensland as well, because Queensland Railway is all 3'6". So doing SN3, they can use HO track and build their locos and rolling stock in S-scale. So yeah, SN3 is big here. And
how about the New Zealand? How about New Zealand Railroad?
That's 4'8", so that's standard to us, I believe. I'm not a big on the New Zealand prototype or outline.
What's the American prototype? What's the gauge on that spoon?
That should be 4'8" also, I believe.
It's not exactly
standard
4 foot.
gauge.
Is it exactly 4'8"?
I think so.
And a half.
So,
4 foot
4
eight.
foot and a half.
And a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a half.
8.5.
Yeah.
And a half.
They're going to keep falling off if you're only 4'8" every time you hit a wide patch of rail.
Yeah, that's all right.
how we ended up with all the different gauges in Australia was Victoria was the first state that turned around and said that they were going to install a rail network and build a railway. So they got together with the neighbouring state, which is New South Wales. Now, Victoria and New South Wales are the two most populous states in Australia. And they said to them, okay, we're going to use a Great Western GWR engineer. He's going to design our network, and it's going to be 5'3". And they agreed that they were going to do the same thing. Victoria started building their first railway, and there was an election in New South Wales. So the new government came in and said, no, bugger that, we're not following what the Victorians are doing. We're going to go and follow a different engineer. And I believe it was an Irish engineer they got over there, and he decided it was going to be 4'8". And that's how the two most populous states, with the two biggest capital cities, ended up with two different gauges going between them. And as I said, you used to get to the border about 1 o'clock in the morning, and in the 60s you'd have to get off one train, walk across the platform, get on another train. And then they got all modern and they realised they could lift the cars up and actually swap the bogies out from underneath them. So it'd go through a bogie exchange program.
Wow.
So they refer to the 5'3" as broad gauge?
Yes, broad gauge. And then when you go into South Australia, which is where Adelaide is, you get 5'3", 4'8", and 3'6", all in the one state.
And where are you? What state are you in?
We're in Queensland.
Okay.
So we're up north.
4'8"?
3'6" is our heavy rail, our rail network here. And it's really funny because the Gold Coast just put in a light rail system or a streetcar system. And they say the streetcar goes to the heavy rail. The streetcar is 4'8" and the heavy rail is 3'6".
Jeez.
Should be the other way around.
Yeah. That's goofy.
What do they refer to the other two gauges as?
Standard gauge.
So they do 4'8.5" is a standard gauge.
4'8.5" is standard gauge. And in Queensland, 3'6", they just refer it as 3'6".
They don't call it narrow gauge or anything.
No, because we also have 2-foot gauge railways here as well.
How did they manage to get that screwed up? I think every government in the world is screwed up.
You got to remember, this place was basically five independent countries that were formed, and it wasn't until 1900 that Australia amalgamated into one country.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I also remember in the early days, the U.S. and Canada had a mixture of gauges as well.
Oh, did they?
I wonder if it hadn't been for the Civil War, if we'd have all different gauges now.
Yeah.
Because the Civil War kind of straightened things out.
Yeah, the southern states had a broader gauge, and then even in Canada there was a broader gauge, and there was one Sunday sometime where basically the railroads were shut down and they moved the rails over to make it 4'8.5".
But in Australia, but we eventually figured it out. In Australia, they're still fighting over. So
you got to remember, you guys have got a bigger population and more money to do the infrastructure. I mean, here, the reason why Queensland had 3'6" was the cost.
Right.
The government just couldn't afford to build anything bigger than 3'6". So, and it's still the same today. I mean, the population of Queensland is only 5 million, and Queensland's 2.5 times the size of Texas.
Yeah.
So there's probably more people living in the Dallas-Fort Worth area than there are living in the whole of our state.
Why in Australia are they so worked up about having photo radar? That would drive me nuts.
Photo radar, what with the cars?
Yeah. Weren't you telling me that's a big thing in Australia?
It is.
That would drive me nuts.
Yep. There's a couple of things I've mentioned. The other one was the breathalyzers as well over here. They just pull people over and put them on the breathalyzer. You don't have to have any reason or the likes. That's usually the first thing a police officer will ask you to do.
But in that, don't they?
But we got cameras everywhere on the streets. Virtually, they're changing all the red light cameras at intersections now to be speeding cameras as well. So,
That would drive me nuts.
oh, it does.
All right. So, what about a last question? Is American railroading then fairly popular in model railroading? Like a lot of guys are modeling the American stuff.
Oh yes, yeah. It's probably the Australian prototype is probably the most prevalent, and then the American one very close behind. Like here I go for operating sessions on 3 different layouts, and they're all American outline layouts. I'll be the only Australian layout that's here. So yeah, the NMRA. Well, you can't really judge the NMRA for American modelling, because in Australia the NMRA, doesn't matter what prototype you model, you can be a member.
Right. Okay.
But, yeah. But American modelling out here, yes, is very big.
Okay, so that's the difference between Australia and England then. In England, if you're American, pretty much if you're an American modeler or an NMRA modeler, you're an American.
Yeah.
If you're an NMRA member, you're an American modeler. Spit it out. All right.
Yep.
Bruce, I see Bruce went out to check to see if there was any mail.
Yeah.
Bruce, did you go out to check and see if there was mail? Bruce?
Yes, that's exactly sort of what I was doing.
Okay. All right. I think we covered anything. Does anybody have any more questions for Martyn about Australian railroading or his... What do you call your thing? What do you call the one that you're making? Do you have a name for it? The Raspberry box acrylic?
It's called the Raspberry Pi Sprog one.
Is that yours?
Like the spaceship.
So that's what you're calling yours? It's the Raspberry Pi Sprog one?
Yes.
All right. And how would people get a hold of you if they wanted to ask you questions?
They can get a hold of me through any social media, but I have a YouTube channel, which is Martyn 1107.
I'm going to look that up right now.
And it's Martyn.
All right.
1107.
All right, I'm going to look. And how did you come up? What's the 1107 mean?
That's my inspector number with my government job.
Okay. Do you ever actually work? Because every time I call you up, you're like available.
I work on flexi time.
Yeah, flexi time. Okay, I found you. Okay, to your credit, your channel was easy to find. I just put in Martyn, Martyn, not
Yep.
I, but Y like as in Yankee. 1107, and boom, your channel's up. So you got one of the Nevada Railroad Museum and N-scale op sessions in Kansas City. I'm going to scroll down until I see the first live stream. So where is what's the YouTube video about your Raspberry Pi thing? Is it Raspberry Pi Sprog P1?
That's
1.
it.
It put it up a year ago. It's 24 minutes long, and it tells you everything you need to know. Did you make one about a multimeter, too?
Yeah, there's one there on multimeter basics, how to use a multimeter.
Oh, man, I'm going to watch that. I'm useless at using a multimeter. I don't know why. It's just something I never obtained in my brain cells.
There's digital and analog meters in that video.
Perfect.
And there's a whole bunch there on Puffing Billy and some Australian prototypes, and a heap on Australian model railway shows.
Yeah. There's model railroad shows?
Yeah, there's the Brisbane Model Railway Show,
Okay.
Toowoomba Model Railway Show.
I thought you meant, I was thinking of TV. See, everybody's all excited because there's that British one now. All right, your Raspberry Pi one is got almost 2,000 views, so that's the one. Have you watched that yet, Chris? Did Chris leave?
No, he's on
No,
Chris
I
forgot
have not.
This is a video.
Chris is so busy doing his taxes. I don't know if I like this where the camera's on. I just it throws me off. I can't.
I have mine off.
Yeah, I know. That's actually
I
how.
thought I was being polite and not breathing in the microphone by muting and whatnot.
Yeah, no, that's good, but we can still see you working on your taxes. And
I have my iPad in front of my keyboard and I'm reading something. I'm reading. That's what I'm doing.
are we boring you?
No. What am I gonna do? Sit here and stare?
Well, listen intently. That's right. That's interesting. We have this echoing problem when the cameras are off, but not when they're on. Martyn, you're an electronics whiz. What is that?
I don't know. It must be the flux capacitor not holding its charge.
It makes complete sense.
All right, so okay, I think I'm going to get one of these, Martyn. I got a feeling I'm going to buy one of these. This sounds really simple to hook up my JMRI. Sounds like really simple.
Yep. Not a problem. We'll make negotiations.
Yeah, we'll make.
If we get a package deal together for 2, can we get a break on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can get them home delivered as well.
Can we? All right.
How do you
I'll
get
just add that onto the price.
Yeah, so you're going to get one too, Bruce? We're going to do this together, buddy?
I was thinking I might, because I got a few pieces of DCC rolling stock
exactly.
I purchased, and it'd be fun to kind of screw around with.
I know. I think this is a no-brainer.
And I do have a couple small little switching sound cells we built for the couple of conventions. I could play around with those.
This is a no-brainer. I think this is...
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and then Mike's going to have one, and Chris has pieces of one.
I just don't have the fancy box.
Yeah, that's what he's doing right now. He's designing a fancy box.
Yeah, he's got his pen and paper going.
Yeah.
I need to get Martyn. Hey, when do you guys think you're going to do this? Do you think you'll have this before Springfield? When are you going to ship this out to Lionel and Bruce the mailboy?
Well, Springfield's only a month away.
Yeah, how long?
Yeah, well, I mean,
as we speak.
Yeah.
So if we got this thing ordered and got the money in the hand tomorrow, could you mail it Monday? And
Monday, I can mail them out. That's not a problem.
When does it? How long does it take to get things here or get things to Toronto from?
Which is cheaper?
I think it take a week?
Round about a week and a bit.
Okay, so we'll figure out how to include the price of an extra box, and you can stick a box in there, and they can bring it to me.
Okay, well, and how are you going to get the box from Toronto to Springfield?
Well, I heard from a guy that he was bringing me a box of freight cars that he didn't need anymore. You can just stick that box in the.
I'm not sure.
And because I'm going to be in Springfield, and you guys are going to be in Springfield.
Yeah, see, that's a gift. What you're asking for is a commercial purchase.
We're
going to spend hours
turning into Chris's mule.
Yeah.
All
right. Okay, Bruce, can you give out the email address?
I can.
All right. Do it.
Would you like me to?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Go.
Our email address, if you want to inquire about anything you've heard on the show tonight, Modler's Life, there is no A in front of it. It's just Modler's Life with one L, modlerslife@gmail.com.
That's perfect. You do the best mail thing. You do.
Well, my mama said I got to be good at something in life. So.
Yeah, you're good at a lot of things. I love...
Well, he's the mail boy. Of course he does it.
Yeah, I know, but he does it so well. And we have a website. It's at amodelerslife.com. If you go there, there's all kinds of stuff you can look at. And there's links and stuff like that. And there's a rundown of all the shows that have been on. And there's the one that Mike Fixes the Internet, which was back in December of 2018. But apparently he turned it off again. I guess technically I need to apologize for that show because apparently he did fix the internet.
I have no idea. I have no idea what's going on anymore with this. It's getting beyond frustrating. It's just I don't know if it's the house, I don't know what it is.
No.
I think somebody shut down the containment grid.
Yeah.
Maybe I should pay the bill.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and the problem is now that you're a a huge podcasting celebrity. People want to hear from you.
Yeah.
Well, now Chris is on his phone.
You're assuming I haven't been on my phone the whole time.
Well, I could at least up until now, before we did this, where we could see each other.
Is that better? There's my iPad.
I could always pretend.
The spoon looks like he's in the Apollo capsule again.
Yeah, I know. That's
preparing for line.
The best though is with the photos on the table, we were looking straight up at his rafters.
Yes.
Floor joists.
Oh yeah, that was the underbelly of the beast. That was what that was.
Which I saw shelf brackets and all sorts of interesting things.
And
He looks a bit.
Go ahead, Martyn.
Looks a bit like the young gun at Kansas City.
Yeah, yeah. When he was sleeping on the floor, right on a hardwood floor, he just fell asleep.
And he was completely sober because the young gun doesn't drink.
Yeah,
that was the part that was hard to understand.
Yeah, yeah. And by now, we have either several times had live streaming, which I'm already starting to get worried about based on what we're doing tonight, or we did it once and it was a complete disaster. Okay, that's it.
We're gonna go with an over under on that and let it open up.
Yeah, let's do an over under on that.
Can I add something before we go?
Sure.
Just real quick, can Martyn, because you did say if you have any questions, but specifically if people want to know of this thing from Martyn, they should email Martyn, right? So should we get Martyn's contact information at all?
Well, he said he has the YouTube channel, and I think that's how he would prefer if people contact
Martyn,
him.
you don't have an email that people can email you?
They can email me direct if they want. It's the same as the YouTube channel. It's martyn1107@bigpond.com.
And the country code for Australia at bigpond.com.
Across the big pond.
What is Big Pond?
Big Pond is our national internet provider.
Oh, okay. Like big
run by Telstra.
So a big egg as in BIG.
BIG
and
POND.
And pond like as in water. I wonder what the origin of that is. Oh, that was nice, Mike. This is what I heard.
I just got up. Sorry.
This podcast. This one is broadcast. This podcast is over 4.5 years old, and they're getting worse instead of better.
It's a retrograde.
Yeah, it's a retrograde. All right, that's it. So remember, the Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10 orthodontists. So, Bruce, we've done the email address.
Yes, we did.
I've given them the address for the website.
Yes, you did.
And then I said the podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10 doctors.
You actually said orthodontist.
Orthodontist, yes.
Medical professionals, and it covers everybody.
Well, don't you talk to isn't an orthodontist addressed as Dr. such and such?
Yes.
Or Dr. somewhat?
Yes, but if you say medical professionals, it could be any of them, whereas
well, I know.
orthodontist is a specific medical professional.
I understand that, but I just was trying to, because what I'm getting at is then about after we all went and got a drink and some food, we realized we screwed up the ending.
Yeah.
It'll all be edited.
Yeah, you would have to bring that up.
I know. Well, I screwed it up.
We're professionals. We can take that and fix it.
We're transparent here at the old AML network. We don't want to appear too professional. Greg Giavinello insisted we were professional, and that threw me off.
I don't think there's any fear of that, is there?
Well, I think some people think we're the most professional model railroad podcast out there. Wow. Which I think is a pretty low bar, but you and I
be like a limbo bar 6 inches off the ground.
Yeah, exactly. It's a hard one to get under, but it's easy to get over. All right, so we're gonna do the ending properly now. All right, Martyn, are you ready? Do you know what to say at the appropriate moment?
Is it happy rail to you?
Yeah. We forgot one question. may I interrupt? We forgot to ask our esteemed guest, Mr. Jenkins, about how many podcasts of this wonderful show he has listened to.
Oh, yeah. How did you find the show, even more importantly?
How did I find the show? I was just searching Google for model rail podcast because I'd been listening to model rail radio for a while with Tom. And I thought there's got to be more of these out there. And hey, presto, yours popped up with a bunch of others, which have now fallen by the wayside. And to answer Bruce's question, I've listened to every podcast from the beginning.
Sweet.
Because these things are great to put on while you're in the train room doing work.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have to ask a question. What did you think of the elevator music extended mix CD?
It's the elevator music was okay, but the one that gets me is I think it was the banjos.
This whole thing of having the cameras on is a disaster. And Bruce and Ostertag, Spoon keeps going in and out. The camera's on, the camera's off, the camera's on. Now it looks like he's like jammed himself. How tall are you, Mike?
5'10"
Yeah, you look like you jammed yourself into a 4'10" frame. What a mess. If one more person says to me, I like your podcast because it sounds professional, I'm going to slap them. All right. Well, Martyn, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
Happy rails to you.
While in Busted Knuckle, guests of A Modeler's Life podcast stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.